It's up to you, New York, New York. How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on YouTube. With me, my guy, my longest standing friend, Richard Dorney. I think he's on his way to Albany. Is that right?
I am. I'm driving up to Albany for work.
Got it. And Rich brought to my attention that he was going to have some time on the road. So with the dust just settling from the football season, baseball is around the corner. Pitchers and catchers will be reporting in a couple of weeks. And as some of you may know from his past appearances here on the show, my guy Rich is a diehard New York Mets fan, as I am a diehard Yankee fan. As you can see in my avatar, that was a picture of us at the 9/11 game, 20th anniversary back in 21. Mets ultimately won that series 4-2. Welcome to the show, Rich. We're going to be hitting on MLB. We'll start with your team, the New York Mets. Obviously, some popular players removed, brought in some new talent. What are your thoughts on some of the roster movement of the New York Mets?
So typically, I am a reactive and emotional person, and I resigned to a different approach this offseason when things started to go down. And after the news of Edwin Diaz, I was really concerned. And then, everything shakes out after, and you realize, I think his brother's still on that team. He wasn't coming back, right? So whether it's culture, locker room culture, Soto, Lindor, politics, McNeil, Nimmo, whatever it wasn't working. Brandon Nimmo, to me, similar, I think when you and I talked, I look at him as like a Brett Gardner kind of guy, right?
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
He's a good player, an average player. I think last year was an outlier in terms of his offensive production, but his defense has gone down. Great guy, good fan guy, cool to the kids. I'm not going to miss him. As a matter of fact, I don't own a single Brandon Nimmo thing, and I have a ton of Mets stuff. Trading him for Marcus Semien as a 1-for-1. I think there was some cash considerations in there. I'm excited to see what he can do. Guys, a vacuum at second. There's a plug up the middle now with Lindor and him. And then, the one that really hurt, the homegrown, rookie home run record. Got to see it all, the home run derbies. I mean, it hurts to say Pete Alonso is not going to be in a Mets jersey next year. But, Stearns had a plan, and he set guidelines, and he did what he wanted to do, right? And I'm not unhappy with what happened. I mean, Bo Bichette coming out of nowhere, taking him from the hated Philadelphia Phillies. I would spit on the floor right now if I wasn't in my car. Jorge Polanco at first is not the sexiest of moves, but day in and day out. I think what we've been able to do with Luis Roberts Jr. and Bichette and Simeon and Polanco is create some symmetry throughout the whole lineup. You extend what this lineup looks like, some guys that can battle. Because, I mean, I know you don't follow them as much as I do. Last year was feast or famine, right? Even with Pete. I love Pete, but you get 4 or 5 games of multi-strikeouts, maybe a walk, and then you get a 2 or 3 game stretch where he's just hitting bombs, right? So he wins those games for us, but he also loses those other games for us. So
I think defensively too. I think you're getting it like you said, an everyday grinded out ball player in Polanco. I like the infield. I think Lindor and Semien is an upgrade over what you guys have had in recent years. I imagine that means Bichette is going to be getting duty at multiple places, but I imagine third base. Yes.
Yeah, he is the everyday third base guy, and there's been some talk as to how much of a defensive upgrade are we really when considering, he's never played that position before. Before we move on, I forgot one piece of this puzzle. I hate everything about Jeff McNeil. I mean, he has become nothing but an asshole. I was there in person with my daughter when she got to see and meet Lindor, and there were kids everywhere just calling McNeil's name out. He was literally 10 feet from a group of like 20 plus kids, didn't even turn around. The kids came over, Vientos, Batty, everybody, wouldn't even bat an eye. I mean, and I'm not ashamed to tell you that I screamed as loud as I could when they were all done walking away and McNeil was right there. I said, McNeil! And he finally turned around because I was the only one screaming. I was like, I won't be sad to see you go, man. And just walked back up to my seats. So I think to what you said, though, yeah, I mean, Bichette's going to play the hot corner. And I'm excited to see what this infield's going to look like. And obviously, what was the most impactful piece that we pulled in this offseason?
Well, 2 of them, if you ask me, because I think Devin Williams just wasn't right for the Yankees for a litany of reasons. But this is a guy that before his Bronx stop was one of the best closers in MLB with the Brewers. Of course, his career took a side turn after giving up that instrumental home run to Pete Alonso. It carried over into New York. But I have a feeling that staying in the city, but being with the other team and going back to the National League is going to help him. And of course, Freddie Peralta, a guy that you absolutely had to get, in my opinion. Now you pair him at the top of that rotation. And I feel that, if Kadai Senga can work past some of his location issues, and from time to time his walks are a little higher than people would like, I have a feeling that the Mets could be in a position, because that was my worry about your team last year, that I felt that while the rotation might have a decent ERA, they're not going to give you enough length, and that leads to a problem in the dog days of summer. I think you got a guy like Peralta now that once every 5 days you got a real good chance to win that particular ball game. He could be a guy who continues a winning streak or a guy who ends a losing streak, and that's invaluable for a team that's chasing the championship.
Well, the other thing that everybody's forgetting, because it's kind of a throwaway in the fact that we have control. I mean, Nolan McLean is, I think I'm correct in saying, the number 1 ranked MLB prospect currently, and he was lights out last year. I mean, this guy could be a legitimate ace for us, a DeGrom-like ace, and man, he is a bulldog. He's got the balls to go out there and do what he needs to do. I love it. I mean, I'm excited.
Well, that's the exciting part, because now you're talking about a potential 3-headed monster if they're all clicking.
Yeah, I mean, and you got Peterson, Sean Manaea, who is coming off of 2 years ago with a great season that got him that contract in the offseason. He had an injury, he can come back. I mean, I think what is it? Zip had the Mets as the 3rd ranked team in major leagues, behind Philly as 2 and the Dodgers as 1. And I don't believe in that Philly nonsense. They just ran it back minus one of their star pitchers. You re-signed an aging catcher, and I think you got a reliever out there. That's
Yeah,
about it.
JT Realmuto is not who he once was. Uh, Bryce Harper has a lot of sluggers. They have to leave the outfield at some point. He's already made that transition. Kyle Schwarber is a phenomenal home run hitter, no question about that. But yeah, I don't see Philly as necessarily better in the rotation. I'm not convinced that they're more sturdy to go a 162 like a Mets team or even a Braves team that I'm expecting a bounce back year from. And it goes without saying that you might as well pencil in the Dodgers to win over 100 games. Last year was a rarity where nobody won 100 games. I think it speaks to the parity on Major League Baseball. That was a great World Series we had. Toronto deserved to be there. They fought their way back from 0-2 against the Mariners. But, they lost the key piece, in my opinion. Bo Bichette was important for what that team did. And I also think that although he's older, Max Scherzer was a big contributor there. I think Savage is going to be in the Cy Young consideration if he can pitch like that for an entire season. But you got some question marks in Toronto now. I don't foresee them doing what they did last year. Detroit gets Framber Valdez, a guy that you didn't really want no part of. I understand
No,
the thesis
and
why they did it.
that's why it took so long, because the exact reason I didn't want anything to do with him. You get a guy who's going to cross up his catcher like that. That is not a team. That's not what you want. You don't want to bring, and he is not good enough to be that big of an asshole. Like if he was the best pitcher in baseball and he had an attitude, I think some GMs and managers would look the other way.
Well,
But
yeah, if he was like a Pedro Martinez at his peak, or even a King Felix at his peak, you could overlook some of that stuff. There is a connection with AJ Hinch, of course, because of the Houston Astros, so I do get it. And I think one of the big questions going into the new season, Rich, is this the last year for both Tarek Skubal as well as probably the guy he's going to get compared to the most right now? Of course, Paul Skeens out in Pittsburgh. Is this the final year that these two guys are going to be wearing those uniforms?
I mean, it's more than likely, right? I mean,
One would think.
Detroit does not really go out and do what they're supposed to do, and historically, like the Tampa Bay Rays have become the feeder system for the rest of Major League Baseball in the American leagues. The Pirates have always been the feeder system for Major League Baseball in the National League, which is pretty sad. And I think that also leads up to another part of this conversation that we're probably headed for a lockout after this season between the Dodgers and everything that's going on with how they're handling their business. I mean, realistically, the MVP made $2 million last year because of the
the way that they backloaded that contract and put themselves in a position to avoid luxury tax bust ups, and that's why they're able to get the likes of a Kyle Tucker. That's why they're able to get the likes of a Yamamoto. This is a team that it's scary how good they are. And even the little things, Rich, we saw it last year in the World Series. They did not panic in the final innings of that game when they were looking elimination in the face, just being genius defensively, not, and getting contributions from not the household names, so to speak. Guys like Kike Hernandez, guys like Andy Pajes, and you have a star-studded lineup through and through with Freddie, Mookie, Shohei. This team is it's really unfair, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a real long kind of lockout because of the fact that it's getting to a point where people are saying, is it time to have a salary cap?
Well, not only a cap, I think you need a floor too. I mean, the Pirates are the perfect example of that guy's just pocketing the revenue share. There's nothing going in there, right? Like it's pathetic. If I was a Pirates fan,
you have nothing to look forward to.
Nothing.
Yeah, you have nothing to look forward to. I mean, there's different ways to get to the top. You got the Billy Bean system, where you're considering other stats, like WAR, on base percentage in different ways, contact versus power, a lot of variables, getting a speedy team, guys that get on base. Of course, the Yankees in years past, going more so in the 90s, they had a fortified core of homegrown Yankees, but what really filled out that team in other areas was they were getting proven veteran pitchers, maybe a couple of guys that were looking to revamp their careers and their lives for that matter. Guys like former Met legends, Darryl Strawberry, of course, Doc Gooden. But the point is, even that pales in comparison to the way the Dodgers can just chuck their money around and pretty much do whatever they want.
Well, now you brought up the Yankees in the core four. I want to touch back on the Mets for a second with something. So there's a lot of chatter about Lindor, right? And some of the beef that was going on in the locker room with him and McNeil, and then I think it spilled over with Nimmo too. And it may have been politics driven, which is absurd to me to think that you can't coexist as a team when you have difference of opinions. I mean, it's also a bigger conversation. We could spend hours talking about the world and how that's become a way that people can't even get past their own beliefs, because you're not can't bend enough to be able to like somebody and dislike what they get behind.
Yeah, we've definitely gone backwards in that regard as a society. There's no question about that.
Francisco Lindor is not going anywhere, right? He is as much
this
team as it is Juan Soto's. So when they talk about how he behaves or whatever it may be, when it comes to fans and fronts, I saw it firsthand. He took time. He came over. They opened up that wall. We sat there, and I mean, I sent you the pictures. My 4-year-old was in heaven. She treasures that ball and that time she got to spend with him. Right. When it comes to what his on the field abilities are, I mean, the grand slam against Philly, the 3 home runs against the Yankees when we were there, the consistency. I mean, if it wasn't for Ohtani 2 years ago, I mean, he would have been National League MVP, right?
And he never freaks out when he's going through it in a slump. You're always going to get a great defensive effort.
And I'm not comparing them, so calm down. But Derek Jeter, right? He had his ways, and he behaved how he behaved, however he needed to, whatever else. And it was his team, and that's it, right? End of story. When A-Rod came there, it was Jeter's team. This is Lindor's team. People can talk about Soto all they want. It's never going to be he's not going to be the guy. So I'm sick of it. The guy has been nothing but consistent since he's been here. He had one bad year when he first got here. He's been a stud every other year. The rest of the league would kill to have him starting shortstop. So that's my 2 cents.
And honestly, when you look at what the Yankees did in the mid-2000s, they bring in Alex Rodriguez, who in many people's estimations was a superior defensive shortstop than
100%.
Derek Jeter. Although I'm not the biggest A-Rod fan. I am far from an A-Rod fan. I'm far from an A-Rod fan. But I do think that he did the right thing by sliding to third. But this is a comparable thing in terms of mega money, and sometimes people will even go as far as saying, are they in the same air in terms of the way they move? Talking about guys like Soto, guys like A-Rod versus the Lindors and the Jeters of the world. And that's why when I think about what a captain looks like, that would be a Francisco Lindor, where what the bona fide superstar is a Juan Soto or an A-Rod, and obviously Jeter was the captain of the Yankees. I think there are some eerie comparisons when you look at today's Mets, those 2 superstars, yesterday's Yankees, those 2 superstars. As Juan Soto goes, I thought as the year moved on, he started becoming more and more comfortable. Playing in Citi Field is a lot different than playing in Yankee Stadium. I also believe that where Soto started just getting better and more comfortable is just allowing the game to come to him again. And he is one of the finest guys in terms of drawing walks. He is a master of drawing walks, and it's a great way to keep the on-base percentage up when you go through slumps. None of these guys are above having slumps. But I do believe that year 2 for Juan Soto will be better than year 1, because there was an adjustment period that needed to be made there too.
I think
Go ahead.
I think Soto's gonna have his Mets moment this year. He didn't really have a Mets moment last year. That like I said, harking back to Lindor with the 3 home run game against the Yankees or the grand slam against the Phillies. Soto's gonna have one of those moments, and that's where it's gonna be. And you'll see the progression get even better. I think there's a chance he could win a batting title. I would tell you it's damn near impossible for anyone to take National League MVP with Ohtani still playing baseball, just because of who he is and what he's capable of.
Yeah, the fact that he could steal the bases at the frequency he does, and of course be among the top 5 in home runs year in and year out in either league. The guy does everything, and also another walk machine. And he pitches. This generation's Babe Ruth through and through. I do want to hit on my New York Yankees. I know that there are some Yankee fans that are kind of pissed off. Trent Grisham, he took the qualifying offer. A lot of people didn't feel that he was going to take it. Of course, coming off a career year. He is the other guy that we acquired in the Juan Soto rental deal. Of course, Soto is currently residing in Queens, enjoying that beautiful suite, sitting on his money. Oh, Jesus. We did bring back Cody Bellinger, the former National League MVP of 19. I personally think that he was tailor-made for Yankee Stadium. He does bring a versatility, well-liked in the clubhouse, veteran presence. I'm happy they brought him back. There are opt-out clauses after year 2 and 3. Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. We know all about that guy. It was nice to see him have a much better October. I think it was necessary, although the Yankees did fall short of their goal of making another World Series. At third base, I love Ryan McMahon defensively, but I am happy that we have some other pieces on that bench, like a Jose Caballero. You take a guy like an Anthony Volpe. He's going to be starting the season late. You also have Ahmed Rosario, who you're familiar with, being a Mets fan. A good contact hitter. He's always been able to hit no matter what uniform he wears. Jazz Chisholm Jr., I got to love and hate with Jazz. I'll give him a compliment and tell you why Bichette will be okay. Bichette's never played third. Jazz never played third. Jazz did an admirable job in 24 helping the Yankees win the pennant. So I do believe in that regard, Bichette will be just fine. I actually think it's going to be a better transition for him because he was lackey at times at shortstop, although he has some great moments as well. He's going to be just fine there. The big question for the Yankees this year, in my opinion, you got to be able to survive to the middle of June, late June, because you'll be getting back Garrett Cole. Carlos Rodon should be returning in May. Clark Schmidt, I don't expect him to pitch this year. They go out and get Weathers. That's a project situation. That's a guy that the Yankees looking at, and they're like, Matt Blake could fix him. Matt Blake has fixed many a journeyman, so we'll see how that goes. I do feel good about the bullpen for the most part. I think David Bednar deserves first crack. I would like to see Luis Gil during the course of the year find his way into the bullpen because he does have the good swing and miss stuff. And Cam Schlittler, that's going to be a huge piece right now.
That kid's a stud.
Yes, he is. Reminds me of a young Garrett Cole. Oddly enough, they are teammates. He reminds me of Cole back in his Pittsburgh days when he was like just fresh, throwing straight gas. He reminds me a lot of a young Cole.
Does he have a jar of Stickum too, or was that just Garrett Cole?
No. That was
Spider Tack.
Spider Tack, yes. No, those were for those are some of the pitching notes. You know how those lockers, some of them are dated. Yeah, that's all that was. But Cam Schlittler pitched great baseball last year. Big stage, timeless rival. He pitched great against the Red Sox. Big reason why the Yankees won that series. Pitched well against the Blue Jays as well in a series that the Yankees were far outclassed in. I personally think the Yankees could hang around and be a top 3 team in the American League. They did have the best record in the American League last year, tied with Toronto. Toronto had the tiebreak. I expect the Red Sox and the Yankees to possibly both jump the Toronto Blue Jays this year. I love Boston's infield, and I hate saying that, but I got to call it down the middle.
They just made a trade today.
Yes, they did. Boston's getting better, and I keep it honest on this show, even if I don't like it. Alex Cora is a superior manager to Aaron Boone. I'm not even debating it. I'm not a big Aaron Boone guy. Never have been, never will be. I'm more of a Billy Martin kind of guy. I'm more of a Lou Piniella kind of guy. I like guys that know how to stand up to management. I also like guys like Joe Torre who know when to scream at somebody and when to coddle somebody because, being in charge of all those personalities is never an easy thing. I also think Joe Torre was very fortunate to be the Yankee manager when he was. I think Buck Showalter, Gene Stick Michael, as well as Bob Watson, did a great job of building that team when the boss was away from baseball because of the Howard Spira stuff. But I do expect the Yankees to be a top three club. I still think that people are getting a little too over the top with, oh, they're just running it back. I don't completely see it that way because the way I look at it is I thought there was just as much protection in that lineup with Bellinger and such in there. I know people are clowning on the Paul Goldschmidt move. I mean, he is 38 years old, 4 years removed from his MVP season, but you're bringing him in because he crushes righties. That's why you're bringing him in. You're bringing him in because he crushes lefties rather, excuse me, crushes lefties. And Ben Rice is your first baseman now. You know, JC Escarra will be backing up Austin Wells for now. But I feel that given the market and given what was out there, the Yankees did just fine this year. I don't necessarily think that they needed to have the splashiest. I think that when you win 94 games last year, and you also have to take into consideration how many games Devin Williams blew, and he had some help from others in that pen. This is a good baseball team that is only, one season removed from a World Series berth. So I definitely feel that the Yankees should be competing with the best in the American League, regardless of waiting on Cole and others to get healthy. I think Schlittler and Fried are more than capable of carrying the rotation for the first couple of months of the season.
And pending the outcome of the season, you might have Tarek Skubal and Skeens moved before the trade deadline.
There is a possibility, of course. Of course, I think we both agree that we hope the Dodgers don't get their hands on one of those two. How sick would it be, though, if one of each of them went to our New York teams? How cool would that be?
It would put both teams at an advantage neither of them have currently, but I personally would prefer Skeens. I think
I would too.
like his stuff a little bit better. I'm excited, man. I'm also real excited to see the Mets go to Philadelphia for the first time so that those Mongoloids can boo Bo Bichette when he gets up into the box.
Well, it's funny. You talk about Yankee moments, Mets moments. The first Jazz Chisholm moment was of real, like, wow. I mean, he did steal a couple of bags in Fenway the night before on his first game in. He didn't even have his gear yet. He was still wearing his Marlins belt. But when he used Aaron Judge's home run and smashed 2 home runs in Philly, and that was a sweep of the Phillies. I know Met fans, it was one of those rare times where they were pulling for us. That was his Yankee moment. I think Jazz regressed in some regard, trying to hit too many home runs. I understand that the allure of Yankee Stadium with the short right field porch, a lot of guys want to be home run hitters, but he has to use his God-given attributes. The guy could run the bases really well. The guy's always, exciting when he's on the bases, and he has to get that OBP back up a little bit and stop trying to be Willie Mays Hayes in Major League.
He's a free agent at the end of this year, right?
Yes, he is. So this is going to be a big telltale this year to see what happens there. You know, Ryan McMahon, I love him with the glove, but I hope that bat catches up a little bit to his glove. You know, the Yankees have had issues at third base over the years in terms of getting the full package. They're either getting a defensive specialist or a guy who's a bopper that can't field. And Oswaldo Cabrera is an interesting one, coming off that horrific ankle injury, where he's going to fit into this mix. The fact that he's capable of playing the outfield is an advantage for him. But I do think the Yankees could potentially move on from potentially maybe like a Jason Dominguez. I mean, he's very young still, but I am not endeared with his defense. I personally think he's a better fit in center. And I'm curious to see if Trent Grisham could keep up something similar to what he did last year, which was his career year. Trent Grisham's a gamer, no doubt about that.
Well, I'm excited. I'm also excited for the World Baseball Classic. It's always fun to see these teams compete internationally.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Classic. The Classic's good stuff.
I'm disappointed that Aroldis Chapman doesn't get to pitch for the Great Britain team. Did you see that whole thing? They tracked down his lineage. They couldn't prove it close enough.
That's wild.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, Roldis Chapman, definitely a character. I don't
all
miss
right, my
him.
man. I'm excited to start baseball. Hopefully this might be a season we can get you up here for another Subway Series game.
Yes, sir. Time flies, man. That was really 5 years ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. To the viewers, got to say this real quick before we get out of here. As you know, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, and many other baseball players have dated their share of starlets. Mr. Dorney, as we approached the ESPN cubicle, because it happened to be near our vicinity at the 7 line, Dorney gets A-Rod's attention and just starts screaming at the top of his lungs, Ben Affleck. It was right when J-Lo and Affleck were a thing again. And A-Rod, I don't know. He just had that perturbed face. Poppy seemed to enjoy Dorney's humor.
I think I got a Ben Affleck chant going.
Yeah, you did have some of the 7 line going in that direction, but let's be real, man. I'm a diehard Yankee fan. A-Rod was a guy that was fun to kind of have some fun with, or maybe make some fun of.
He is a much better. I like him in the booth.
As do I.
I like that whole mix. Poppy, him, even your Superman over there, number 2.
And in closing, I do want to say one thing. While I appreciate all the things that Derek Jeter contributed to the Yankees, and obviously he's the all-time hits leader for the actual franchise, I do believe that I understand why they associate the whole core four thing with, but they exclude Bernie. But I do think Bernie Williams is criminally underrated and one of the most overlooked Yankees. Because from an offensive base standpoint in the American League, during some of those great years in the 90s, the only center fielder that was putting up better numbers consistently was the great Ken Griffey Jr. Now, I'm not going to put Bernie in the same category as him defensively, but Bernie owns a lot of postseason records. And truthfully, Bernie was the next captain up after Mattingly if number 2 didn't ascend the way he did. And I think Bernie was a huge part of what the Yankees did. And in some seasons was actually the best offensive player on those teams. And I think that, people need to remember that. I'm not against Jeter in any means, but as you know, my favorite captain is and forever will be number 23, Don Mattingly. And I will say number 99 is a huge favorite of mine as well. And even if he wasn't a Yankee, just great for the game of baseball.
And one last thing before we go. My man Beltran going into the hall wearing a Mets cap. I think it puts a lot of warm feelings and puts some of that called strike 3 to rest with Met fans.
Everybody thinks it's easy when you're in there and you got a split second. It was a good pitch, man. Froze him. It was a damn good pitch.
All right, my man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. In the coming weeks, we're going to be giving a full detailed MLB preview, division by division, in one big show. Maybe we'll be able to get Dorney back for that one. Safe travels, my man.
Fuck Philly.
Love you, bro.
Love you.
Later. We out.